we gonna get this on?
Of course, I'm so excited.
Okay guys, I will start the video.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Good,
Good morning, listener.
good morning, listener. Here we are from the CNN Breaking News.
We would like to report some news. Today's news was about the historical of modern banking. Banking in all times was not the tightly monitored and tightly regulated business that it is today. Instead, earlier banking was completely a free market operation. Any entrepreneur could enter and exit the banking business without any restriction or license. So, in this news, we will trace the evolution of banking, how banking changed to be a highly regulated business that it is today. The banking profession, in the strict sense of the word, was first carried on by goldsmiths in medieval Europe. Since it was the business of the goldsmith to deal with valuable commodities, the goldsmith would build strongholds to protect their inventory from theft. The residents of the town want to rent the goldsmith secure vault in order to keep their money safe. The goldsmith therefore started taking deposits, and this was await the birth of modern banking. So over the period of time, the goldsmith realized that the deposit are usually far in excess of the withdrawals. This means that if 100 gold coins were deposited with the goldsmith, statistically only 10 of them would be withdrawn at any given time. Therefore, the goldsmith start lending, and then the money that they had held on deposit even though it did not belong to them. And this was the birth of the second major function of modern banking, like lending money. And taking deposit and making loans together changed the nature of the goldsmith business to money lending. Over a period of time, this would future evolve and becoming bank and became a banking.
The modern era saw money lending transform into banking. Taking deposits and making loans out of deposit was now the usual business of institutions no called banks. Also, the depositors did not have to pay a fee to the banker to safeguard their gold in his secure vault. Instead, they receive compensation in the form of interest part their excess gold with the bankers. This was era of unregulated bank. Banking during this era was entrepreneurial in nature. Therefore, anyone who want to could set up a bank enter the business. There were no license required and there was no regulation. This era continued till the 1600. By the by then, banking had become big business, and some of famous bankers like the Medici family and Rothschild family were considered to be more powerful than kings. As banking evolved over time, people realized that carrying large amount of gold over long distance was unsafe as well as inefficient. The radius of trade and commerce began to spread far and wide, and carrying money over long distance became necessary. This was the birth of banknotes. Private banks would issue private banknotes. The notes were nothing but a receipt for gold that had been deposited at the bank could be withdrawn if the receipt was present. Some of these notes were bearer notes. The gold would be paid out to whoever brought in the note to the bank. This was the beginning of what we today refer as fiat money. One of at the one point in time there were of 30,000 different types of private banknotes in circulation in the United States. Needless to say that this created tremendous confusion, and as a result, special books had to be published. This book would specify the authenticity and the value of different banknotes and how safe was it to accept such a notes as payments. The era of unregulated banking can also be considered to be era of unsurplus banking. Many fly-by-night banks came into existence during this period. Some of these banks were called wildcat banks, and they fleeced entire loan and cities of their savings. In order to bring an order to this cause and prevent the honest bank from losing business, central banks came into existence. Central banks were banks created by special charter by the government. They would act as banker to the government. Also, they would be responsible for the proper functioning of the other banks within their domain. This is when license became a requirement for banking business. However, central banks are largely in a 20th century phenomenon. Many countries did not have a central bank till the late 190s. Many critics believe that the central banking was one of the tenets and socialism, and that somehow the markets must always be free. However, central banks are complacent in the modern world. It is downright impossible to find a country without a central bank today. Another important development in the modern banking system is the fractional reserve system. This means that bankers only need to keep a fraction of the funds on deposit. Therefore, if a bank receives $100 as deposit, it needs to maintain, let's say, 110 as deposit, and the rest can be used for lending. This $1 amount is set by the central bank and periodically varied to increase and decrease the money supply as required. Earlier, a certain amount of gold had to be held on deposit. However, nowadays, banknotes themselves from the reserve base on which more bank notes are issued. Some banks have excess reserve, whereas others are deficient in their reserve. As a result of this, reserves are traded in interbank markets. The markets will be explained later in this section. Therefore, the banking business has undergone tremendous change in the course of time. The basic of nature of the business has drastically changed from safekeeping to full reserve money lending to the modern day fractional reserve banking. Thank you very much.
Well, maybe that's all the today's news about the historical of banking from us, and maybe that's all. See ya, the listener. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, let's discuss the video earlier.
Yeah, I agree.
What happened after the existence of modern banks?
Banks are becoming more strict and orderly.
Do you know who can go in and out of the banking business without restriction or license of any kind?
Oh, any entrepreneur.
Where the banking profession was first launched, ran Goldsmiths.
I know, of course, in Europe.
Why the first professional loans made by Europe very strict?
Because since it was the business of the goldsmith to deal with valuable commodities, the goldsmith would build strong vaults to protect their inventory from theft.
And when the first bank ran by Goldsmiths is Europe.
The first bank run by goldsmiths in the Europe and occurred in the middle of country.
How banking changed to be highly regulated business today?
The basic nature of the banking is drastically changed from safekeeping to all the save money.
Okay guys, I think this discussion is enough. I gotta go right now.
Yeah, I gotta do something.
Okay guys, see you next time.
Thank you for the time, guys. Bye bye.
Okay, see you.
Tutte le genti che passeranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E le genti che passeranno mi diranno che bel fiore, e questo è il fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao.